Okay, so because this is the first meetup, and then usually first meetup is very hard to find speakers, and since I'm the organizer to do this meetup, I also volunteer to be the first speaker. So if you have listened to the talk before, so sorry. But hopefully this talk is actually interesting enough. If you are not techie, but you are very interested about AI, I think this talk is something that you might be interested in, because it's about wipe coding. Okay, as we know that wipe coding now, there are too many tools out there. You've probably heard of Cursor. You probably heard of Lovable. You probably heard of now a new one from Google has anti-gravity. Then there is so many all these tools out there, and they all have its own advantages, have its own features, and then have its own tools that might be beneficial to you. Okay, so AWS also has its own agentic coding tools, which is called Kiro. Okay, and I would like to introduce it to you today. So just brief introduction myself. You can. My name is Kuan. You can call me KH. Actually, I'm working as a data engineering section lead in one of pharmaceutical company. So I'm a Google developer expert, GD machine learning. I'm also an AWS community builder in machine learning. So I founded 2 communities in Malaysia. I founded the AI ML Malaysia User Group, and I founded the Malaysia R User Group. Okay, and then another batch that I added to myself, I founded this AWS AI ML KL User Group. So like Fahim said, I'm quite active in LinkedIn. Please do connect me in LinkedIn. If you have any post today that you are interested, you find this talk is interesting, you can tag me in LinkedIn. Like Fahim said, we want to actually promote more about AWS Office hosting this event. Okay, so this is the agenda for today. I'm going to introduce to you about Kiro. And then maybe if you are not familiar with wipe coding, I will give a brief introduction about what is wipe coding. Then I will talk about some of the unique features in Kiro. Okay, so we have something, we know that Kiro is a wipe coding tools, but in Kiro also has a special unique features which is called spec coding. Wipe coding you probably heard before, but what is spec coding? So what's the difference between spec coding and wipe coding? Then inside Kiro, you have something called steering, and you have something called hooks. Okay, so these are the extra features that you might not find in any other wipe coding tools out there. Okay, of course, in any wipe coding tools nowadays, you have to able to connect to MCP. So Kiro is no different. You also can connect to the model context protocols that you like to connect to. And one of the unique things that Kiro has recently introduced is Kiro CLI. That means you also can use Kiro not just in the VS Code environment, IDE, you also can access Kiro through the command line. Okay, so of course with any talk, the fun part is about the demo, and then I will conclude the session. Okay, so we know that AI is very great to assist in many things now. AI is also very good as assistant for coding. Okay, so now we are in the age of what we call agentic coding. So agentic coding basically is where the AI will drive the software development. The AI agent will autonomously handle the end-to-end tasks and translate your prompt, your prompt that is given by the user into step-by-step programming steps, and it will use the relevant tools and do the testing to make sure the code that is developed is correct, and then you edit the code by itself. Okay, so sometimes the code doesn't compile. Okay, so sometimes you only solve part of the problem. So we know that if I would just do wipe coding, I will just give a prompt. For example, can you develop me a website like airbnb.com? Okay, how many of you think that one line of command will develop everything for you? Definitely you will fail in it, because the prompt is too generic. And in a normal software engineering, if you are a software engineer, when you want to develop something, what do? you come up with a specification, you come up with maybe a layout, you define what are the technical requirements, all the things you probably do before you actually start the software development. So vibe coding, okay, if you just give a prompt, okay, it will not able to understand the actual intent and able to develop everything end to end without any problem. Okay, so this is where the spec-driven development, or what we call spec coding, will come in. Okay, so spec coding, okay, is actually where you provide a very structured process, okay, where you define all the specification to your coding agent workflow with all the tools that you need before you start the development. Okay, so imagine you tell the agent, I want to develop this. So the agent will come up with a specification first. Okay, all the technical specification, the requirement, everything. Then you, your user, okay, will go through all the specification, make sure it's correct. Then then what will happen? The agent will go in and break into task by task. Okay, what you need to do, and then you review again the task and make sure all the tasks are correctly performed. And then the agent also will do the testing. Make sure every task that's completed, the agent will test. Okay, the code has performed what is intended to do. So that is the whole gist of what we call spec coding or spec-driven development. Okay, so if you have not heard of vibe coding, so vibe coding, what it means by vibe coding? So some people have said, oh, the vibe coding means I just code with vibe. Okay, it's not actually. So vibe coding basically is you, your user, just describe what you want to the agent, the AI agent, by giving a prompt. Then the AI agent will understand your intent and develop the code. Okay, and then you, your user, will work with your AI agent, do all the testing and refine the code until in an iterative manner until you come with the end when you deploy the code. So that whole process is called vibe coding. Okay, so basically a vibe coding can be you, a user, do not need to know the programming code in a very detailed manner, but you probably know what you want. Okay, and then you just tell to the agent, and you work with the AI agent to develop the app. Okay, and then iterate in the iterative manner until that you get the final result. Okay, so that is vibe coding. So how does vibe coding work with AI agent? Okay, so imagine now you have this task, you got an error in the code, and then you tell the agent, go and find and fix me the issue. This is the error. Okay, so you tell it to your agentic coding assistant. Okay, could be any agent out there. Could be GPT, ChatGPT. It could be Claude, Sonnet, or it could be Gemini, or whichever coding assistant out there. And this coding assistant will be able to access your code base. So if you are programming, you could be many different files. You have file A, file B, file C. Okay, so the user will have a task that you need to find an error and fix the issue. So in Kiro, okay, you will perform as a coding assistant. You have a choice to choose the model. So the model available in Kiro is based on Claude. So you have Claude model, which is now Sonnet, Claude Sonnet 4. Okay, and then you have the memory, the tools and the memory, where the memory will remember all the previous conversation during the interaction with the user, and then the tools. For example, you have MCP tools or access to data or access to MCP. So those are the tools available to the model. Okay. So in the AI agent, what it will do? Okay. First, it will gather the context of the prompt that's given. Then you come up with a specification. Okay. He come up with a specification, and then you break down the specification into action, and then he will work with the user. The step-by-step action need to be taken. And this process will go in a very iterative manner. At the same time, you're able to access all the programming file that you have available to you by the coding assistant. Okay, so if I mentioned just now, in the traditional software development, okay, So in the software development traditional, what do you do? Okay, so if you are a software developer, you probably start writing the code. After you finish all the code, then normally when you do deployment, that's where you start to have a big headache because you need to do documentation. Okay, so you need to document all the things that you have developed. Okay, so usually for any software developer, to write code is yes, happy. To write document is always a crying face, isn't it? Okay, but with AI agent, okay, we have so many AI agent-based code editors out there. Okay, so they have cloud-based like Codex, they have web-based. You probably heard of VP or Lovable or Boat or Firebase Studio. These are all the editor where you do not need to install anything and you can actually write code just through your browser. Then there's a lot of extension out there that you can plug in and put into your IDE, your VS Code or whatever. They have Client, they have Root, they have Gemini, and many, many more. Then they have native app like Cursor, Windsurf. Then they have things like Terminal that you can run on Terminal. You have Claude Code, you have Ada, Gemini CLI. Now Kiro also come in. Here's a native app, which is also a VS Code base. And Kiro also have now the Kiro CLI. So you can see in this AI-based code scene, it's quite competitive and there are different flavor out there. Okay, so what makes Kiro different is the approach on the software development, which is focused on the this spec-driven spec coding. Okay, so we know this is the common thing, isn't it? Okay, everybody say I can be a programmer. Okay, I do not need to know anything. I can just give a prompt to the AI agent. The AI agent will write everything for me. But suddenly halfway, they got an error. Okay, you tell the agent, fix this error for me. Then the agent will tell you, yeah, I see the error. I see it now. Okay, then I'll fix it for you. You go back and loop, and then I fixed the error already. Please check. Then you go back and see the same error is still there. Then you say the error is still there. Oh, my mistake, my apology. Okay, let me go and fix it again for you. Go and fix, then come back, still there. Then what you need to do? You probably want to flip your table already. Okay, so this is a common problem with that because okay, we started in the wrong footing because we just give a prompt. We expect the AI agent to understand everything to the end and develop what we want. But when we stuck in the middle, then that's where the loop will start breaking down. And to debug wipe coding sometimes is even harder to write your code by yourself. Okay, sometimes the error is just maybe just one bracket, but then it will take forever to solve it because you do not know what you're doing. And debugging or wipe coding can be much more frustrating than writing the code by yourself. Okay, so that is where we say maybe there's a better way. Instead of just jumping into wipe coding, how about we have another approach where we start with the specification first. We start with the specification where we define all the things that we want in the specification, and this specification can be shared to your co-programmer, your team, this specification and also can be understood by your AI agent. Okay, so if you have a proper specification defined earlier before you straight jump into your development, maybe okay, that can actually resolve much of the problem that maybe occur later during your wipe coding. Okay, so this is where the spec-driven development come in. Okay, so you start with the specification, then from the specification, the AI agent will help you to do a plan. Okay, he plan out what it needs to do. From the plan, the AI agent will help you to break it down to a task. Okay, then your user, as a user, what we call human in the loop. Okay, you go through every task and make sure the task is performed correctly, and then do all the testing for every task before you move to the next task. Okay, so that is the process where you do the implementation. So in spec-driven development, okay, you come up with the proper specification and then break it down to a plan and break it down to tasks, then you do the implementation. In this manner, okay, when you have error, okay, the AI agent can go back and look what is the task need to be taken, what is original plan, and what is the specification. And that can reduce the iterative error message that you get probably when doing the wipe coding. So this is the different. Okay, if you are doing wipe coding, you start with the idea. Straight away you do coding. Okay, straight away you do coding. Then you do a lot of ad hoc testing. You do a lot of adjustment in between. Then you get a feature complete. Okay, it looks very nice, but usually it's not like that. Okay, and sometimes you do a lot of iterative debugging in this phase here, that might be very frustrating. So in the spec-driven development, you just like any proper software engineering. Okay, you start with the requirement gathering. You have a very specific specification drafting. Then you review the design, and then you do the implementation. And in between every task, you do a testing and you validate before you move to a next task. And this whole thing here is where the AI agent help you to do, okay, compared to just doing coding itself. Okay. So this is where Kiro come in. So the concept is you can have vibe coding, and you can have a clarity of specification. So Kiro help you to bridge these two, okay, where you have a proper specification, can use the AI agent to do coding, and that's where Kiro help comes in. Okay, so if you, this is how a Kiro will look like. Basically, it's just another IDE, VS Code IDE lah. Okay, so just like your cursor, just like your windsurf, just like your VS Code, is actually another variant of VS Code. But inside here, you can see there's a unique interface of Kiro. So this is where you give the prompt. Okay, you have a chat panel here. So when you start straight away, you can actually start with vibe coding if you want. You can do that. Another way is you can choose to start with the specification. Okay, and this is where you can see the normal VS Code interface. And here you have the what we call the ghost button, the Kiro button. The Kiro button later will show you, you can actually go in and start to create the specification that you want. So you have the status bar here, you have the editor, you can see the code, and then you can have this, when you start, you can choose wipe coding or spec coding. So you can see, you have the Kiro button on the left. Once you click the Kiro button, you can see you can select to create what we call a steering file. So a steering file basically is where you start to create the specification from the beginning. Okay. So normally in any these agentic coding tools, you have something like this. You have a model. Okay. The model will give you plain text direction to respond to what you need to use the tools. The model, for example, in Kiro will be based on Claude Sonnet. You respond to requests using the tools, and then the coding assistant will understand what tool needs to be used. Okay. For example, you, the user, okay, tell that I have this code, I need to write it to the main.go file. So the AI agent will understand, okay, I need to write a code, and the code needs to be on this main.go file. So what he'll do, he'll go and find the main.go file and read the file. Okay, then what happened? Then this main.go file will be shown to the coding assistant, and then he will actually make changes to the file, and then once the changes has been made, you show back to the user. Okay, so this is where the whole process is done by the AI agent. So the model will understand what tools need to be used and what file need to be edited, and then you actually edit the file accordingly. Okay, so the first features in Kiro is what we call the steering file. Okay, what is the steering file? So steering file basically is to provide a very overall context about your project. So Kiro, the agent, will understand all your code base, the convention, the requirement. Okay, so to get started, you just need to go and generate this steering document file in your Kiro panel. The Kiro will generate the project steering file and store in this folder, .kiro/steering. So you actually once the steering file is generated, it actually has three information. So what is this product all about? What is this purpose of this application you're trying to edit? What are the technical stack, and what are the framework, what are the structure and convention? Okay, so the agent will go and understand all your code, everything, understand, okay, and then see what information that he can gather and put into what we call the steering file information. Okay, so this one is, for example, you taken a project from GitHub lah, or you have a project that given to you by your colleague. Okay, so before you start doing anything, changes, you create a steering file first. Okay, so the steering file will contain all this information that is needed. So for example, I can click generate steering file. So you can see it will generate the steering file, and you can see the steering file will be generated and stored in this side panel here. You can see you have a product, you can see product, tag, and structure. So what are the product all about? What are the technical use, and what is the structure look like? Okay, so in the in the steering file, first you have this what we call specification. So you turn your idea now into a very detailed implementation plan. Okay, now you help the product engineering to align, okay, what needs to be built. Okay, for example, after you have the steering file generated, you can say, oh, maybe I want to create this new button, or I want to create these new features. Okay, so now the agent will understand from the steering file what is the specification now that you want to turn into this new idea based on the prompt that's given. So you say, okay, this is the requirement now, what you want to do. You break it down, your requirement, to a user story. Okay, if you are software if you are into software engineering, you know that. Okay, we need to break it down, our task, into user story. This is agile methodology. Then in the user story, we have a clear acceptance criteria. Every story, you have acceptance criteria. Okay, make sure that every story, if it's considered completed, there will be an acceptance criteria. You have a documentation design, you track the progress, and at the same time, you can actually communicate, okay, with your team members what have happened. So you can see with this Kiro, okay, if you are into agile, if you are working in a team manner, you can see all these things are done for you. Okay, if it's a web coding, you cannot see this. Okay, so you can see, okay, I want to add a new feature. You give a prompt. Then what will happen? You from this spec coding, he will come up with a requirement first. Okay, just with your prompt, he'll come up with a requirement file. He come up with a design file. He come up with a task file. Okay, so if you are a user, you go through the requirement. If this requirement is you think is correct, okay, then you accept. You go to the next phase. You do the design file, and then you look at design. If everything is correct, it's acceptable, then from the design file, you break it down to many tasks. And every single task is like a user story, and every single task there will be a validation and testing, and to make sure that the task is completed correctly. And all these things will be the action taken by the AI agent. So you can see, I just give a prompt, okay? The spec coding will come up with the this requirement file, design file, and task file, okay? So from there, you can see, you have the three files that you have, the requirement with all the user story, with all the acceptance criteria. Then you break it down to design. What are the architecture, technical architecture, and how do I approach this implementation? And then from there, you very discrete, trackable, step-by-step tasks. Okay? So you can see, if you are a person who are very particular about knowing every single step, then you can see this is a very good, because he track every single task for you. And every single task, once it's completed, he will do the internal validation testing also. So you can see, okay, you can see the requirement file. Okay, that all the requirement is like actually markdown file lah. Then from there you have the design file. Okay, then from there you have a task file. Okay, so once you have the requirement, you approve the requirement, then you approve the design, then you approve all the tasks, then you can actually, the user, you can decide, okay, execute task by task. Okay, so you review the task in the task.md file. You execute the task. You can say, okay, execute task 1 to task 3, or execute to task 1.1 to 3.2 or something like that. So you execute the task. Every single task you can track the progress, whether it's in progress or done. And every single task usually it will have its own testing and validation. Okay, make sure the task is correctly executed. So you can see the design of the task. In every single task you can see is in progress. And every single task usually there is a testing. Okay, you test that every single task is done before it moves to the next task. So if you are tracking this as like a agile, you can see, oh, this is one user story, there's another user story, you can close it accordingly. Okay, so that is about spec coding. So you have, first you can create a steering file to understand about the project. Then once you give a prompt, okay, the Kiro will come up with 3 files, which is the requirement, the design, and the task. Okay. Another feature that's inside Kiro is called hooks. So in hook, basically, is actually to allow you to do some sort of automation. Okay. For example, if I create a file, if I save a file or delete a file, I need to document it somewhere. You can create that as an automated task. Okay. Or you have a trigger that something activated, okay? Or you have a specific file that you want to make sure that when you modify, you want to follow certain patterns. You can automate this inside what we call hooks. So for example, here, if an event occurs something, I want it to write a document file, okay? So that is inside the hook. So if you have something that repetitively that you want to do, okay, and you want it to automate it, okay, then you can create a hook in Kiro. So you can see when you send a prompt to agent, or whenever Kiro makes an update, or whenever there's an event occur, okay, then you want to do something, you can automate that as a hook in Kiro. Okay, the next thing is, like I mentioned, any other white coding tools out there, okay, definitely you will be able to access to Model Context Protocol MCP. And most of the IDE out there is already an MCP client. Okay, so you need to just connect to an MCP server. So with MCP in Kiro, it also allows you to connect to MCP server, so you can access to like specialized knowledge base or documentation. You can integrate with external API or services. You can connect to database. Okay, you also can add any MCP server that you want to Kiro by just adding the MCP server in the JSON file. Okay, so to add the MCP or connect to the MCP, you just have to go to edit this mcp.json file, just add it inside here. Okay, you can just type in there, or you can just type as a prompt and ask Kiro to add this into the mcp.json file. Okay, so one of the good MCP server that is recommended is this MCP documentation MCP server, AWS documentation MCP server. So imagine you're developing something for AWS, okay, and then you want to refer something to the AWS documentation. So normally what do? Probably you have to go out and do a Google search and read about the documentation. Now, if you connect to this AWS documentation MCP server, you just have to ask inside your chat panel. Then you go and dig up the documentation, official documentation from AWS, and then you can see the result in your chat panel. Okay, so this is a very good MCP server. So for example, I want to look up on AWS documentation how to trigger Lambda. Okay, because now I'm connected to my MCP server, I can get the result straight away. And then you pull out the result for me based on the AWS documentation. This is how you do it. I don't need to go out and Google it. I can just ask inside my chat panel. Okay. Next one I just want to talk about is recently Kiro also introduced another variant, which is the Kiro CLI, command line interface. So with CLI, now you also can use this AI agent, just like the task that you have seen in the Kiro IDE. You can write, review, and modify your code, automate your workflow, everything inside your command line. Okay, so if you are a person that I'm a hardcore programmer, I do not like to see interface, but I want to see everything in the command line. Now you can also access to spec coding inside your command line. You do not need to go to the IDE. So this command line will understand your code similar to your IDE version. It's very adaptive, and then you can chat with it. So the command line also have all these steering file, MCP configuration, just like the IDE. And then you also have the auto agent to deliver the best result at the best price for you. So how to install? So basically you just have to curl and install this, and then you just type Kiro-CLI, and you can launch the this Kiro command line. Okay, so what are the features, unique features in the Kiro CLI? So you have the interactive chat mode. Another unique thing is now in the CLI, you can do some custom agent. You can create and deploy very specialized agent. Okay, later I'll show you some example. You can integrate MCP. You can have similar to your IDE. You can create hooks. You can create steering file, and just like any AI agent, you will also complete your code for you. So you can see you can create custom agent, MCP integration, smart hook, agent steering, and autocomplete. So this is one example of an agent. Okay, for example, now you are developing something in a command line, and then you do not want the AI agent to be very generic. Okay, you want it to be a very specialized agent. So you say, okay, now I want to call this agent. This agent is a back-end specialist. Okay, and this agent, what is it to do? He is very expert in building Express.js API with MongoDB. So you give a system prompt. You are a backend developer, specialized in the Node.js and Express.js. Then what are the tools you're able to do? You can read the file, write the file, execute bash command. And then this is the resources available. Okay? That means you ask the agent to make sure read the steering file. And these are all the backend standards that I want you to read before executing anything. So you can see this agent now is very specialized agent. You do not want it to call a very generic AI agent. Then from there, now when I Kiro CLI, when I do a chat, I call up the backend specialist. So now I can say I can add in a new API endpoint, do some authentication, do some MongoDB schema. So now with this prompt, everything will be based on what the backend agent able to do, which is based on this backend specialist agent. Okay, so you might be intrigued that, okay, is it free? Okay, so people always say that AWS, there's no free thing. But yes, if you are first time trying out with Kiro, when you sign up, you get 500 bonus free credit for 30 days for new user. After 30 days, is it still free? Technically, there is still free, but you only limit to 50 credits. Okay, so this is, for example, I created a new account today. I will get something like this. Okay, you can see that once you create an account, if you don't do anything, you get 500 credit for 30 days, and it's free. Okay, so of course you ask you to upgrade the plan lah. So if you feel like, oh, spec coding is something that I've been looking for because I tried wipe coding, it always failed me. I want it to be a more organized way of coding. Then this is how you can choose. Okay, like I say, after 30 days, okay, is it still free? Yes, you still get 50 credit free, but beyond that, it's no free. Then you can upgrade to $20 per month, you get 1,000 credit. If you're Pro Plus, you get $40 per month, you get 2,000 credit. Then if you're a power user, you can pay up to $200 per month, you get like 10,000 credit. Okay, so you probably ask, you probably ask that, how does the credit work? Okay, how does the credit work? So in AWS, credit will be something like, it's not like a one prompt. It's like probably one prompt, and how much the agent work, that will be calculated as per credit. Okay, so sometimes a prompt and you do something, edit to your file, and it does not make any big changes, that could be consist like 0.1 credit. Okay. So there is no proper way to tell how we calculate, but every time when you finish something, you can go and look at the usage. He'll tell you that how much credit that you have used up. Okay. Okay, so maybe I will do a demo. Okay, so before I do a demo, okay, you can see that Kiro is very detailed, isn't it? Okay, so what do you think one of the disadvantages of Kiro? No money lah. One of the disadvantages of Kiro is people say is overdrive vibe coding. Okay, that means for simple thing, he creates too many files for you. Okay, so let me show you. Okay, so what I want to do is this. So what I want to do, I have this app. Okay, simple app lah. I want to track my expenses, but this app, what I want to do, I just want to create a Google login. Okay, so I just want to create a sign in, something like this. Okay, so I go to Kiro. I say I want to create this, just a button to sign in. Okay, and then this is what happened. Okay, so I don't know whether I can zoom in. Oh, you can see that. Okay, actually my file is very simple here. You can see how many files created. Got spec lah, design lah, requirement lah, task lah, product lah, story lah. Many files I created. Okay. So if you are a person who like to document everything, good for you. A lot of documentation. But because I just want to create one button, it creates so many files for me. And so many markdown files for me. Okay, and then this is what happened. First, I started with something like this, a prompt. Okay, I started with a prompt that I want to create a sign in with Google page. Then you start creating the steering file, then you create the requirement file, then you create the task file, you create all these things. Okay, good. Okay, he's trying to understand what I'm trying to do. But after that, he's trying to create this file for me. Okay, all the requirement, the design, the task. Then to actually, you can see so many tasks, and happy lah. Every single task he do a validation, make sure every single task is correctly. Okay, you can see there's so many tasks. You know how long to run that whole thing and make sure that I have a Google sign in like this? Oops, where's my Google sign? So this is, okay, you can see this is my tracker lah. And then there is a sign in there. You can see now I have a Google button sign in. Okay, I already sign in. Okay, so everything worked, but just to create this button, take me 4 hours. Okay, but it's very detailed lah. Okay, and then in between there's some error, but I just want to say that if there is something that you want it to be very detailed, it doesn't go wrong, this could be a very good things that to do, but sometimes it could be overdrive lah. Okay, you can see it creates so many markdown files, it creates a lot of documentation for me, and then it creates a lot of other things for me. Okay, and then these are the, you can see here, I have this steering file, the product, and then the structure, and then the tag. So everything is created here. Then I have the hook. Just now I said, whenever there's any monitor the Python, if anything change, I want to create update the documentation, and then you can see this is my spec. Okay, so the specification. So you can see all the things are working fine. Okay, and then this is where the chat will have, and then if I want to restore up here, can you see there's a checkpoint up there? There's a checkpoint. So if anything that I want to revert back, I can click the restore button. So there is a checkpoint inside the IDE. If you feel like something that you have done that you do not want, you want to revert, you can go to the restore button. So everything is nice. The only drawback, okay, the only drawback is this. Oops, let me go back to my slides. Oh, my slides here. Okay, so you can see everything is working fine. Yeah, conclusion, Kiro definitely mark a turning point where now you have a proper way to actually turn your coding and give it a very proper architecture. And the future now doesn't belong to people just simply convert the logic to syntax, but people who have a very articulate intent, clarity, and precision to allow the system to bring Kiro from vision to life. Okay, so what is the pros and cons? Where's my pros and cons? I didn't show here, is it? I think I missed the slides. Okay, anyway, I just want to say what's the pros and cons. Okay, the pros is with Kiro, okay, definitely if you want a proper documentation, if you want to every single task to be tested and validated, if you want to have a proper user story, with all the proper documentation, definitely Kiro is something that with spec coding it provides for you. The cons is, okay, sometimes simple things can be over engineered. Okay, you will create a lot of this documentation that might not be necessary, but it could be a better way compared to just a white coding where you just give a prompt and expect it to deliver end-to-end result to you. Okay. Before that, I just one more demo, which is the Kiro CLI. How does it look like? Okay, so Kiro CLI looks something like this. Okay, let me zoom in. Okay, so you can actually see ask question, Kiro, then you can give a command, create something, you create for you. Then similarly, you can just ask it to edit, and then, but everything is command line. Okay. So with that, so I will end the presentation. Thank you very much.